Imagine losing every single thing you spent your entire life building, in less than 10 minutes. Your money, your status, your security, your future, gone. Wiped out in a single, merciless flash of bad luck. Most human beings would break. They would scream at the heavens, collapse into despair, or spend the rest of their days consumed by bitter regret. But over 2,000 years ago, one man stood on the shores of Athens, staring at the smoking, watery ruins of his destroyed life, and he did something terrifyingly strange. He smiled. He didn't cry. He didn't panic. Instead, he looked out at the ocean, took a deep breath, and whispered a sentence that sounded completely insane to everyone standing near him: "Fate commands me to be a less encumbered philosopher." That single moment of absolute devastation didn't ruin him. It birthed a secret, a mental framework so insanely powerful that it allowed a former slave, a Roman emperor, and a disgraced exile to unlock a state of mind that nothing on this earth could ever touch. A state of pure, unshakable, permanent joy. What did these men know that modern society has spent centuries hiding from you? Why does almost everything you've been taught about chasing happiness actually guarantee your misery? And what is the quiet psychological trap sitting inside your brain right now, silently stealing your peace every single day without you even knowing it? Stick with me, because what you are about to discover isn't just ancient history. It is a mental cheat code for human existence, and once you see it, you will never look at your life the same way again. Let's take a deep breath and look closely at that man standing on the shore. His name was Zeno. Before that fateful afternoon, Zeno was a wealthy purple dye merchant. In the ancient world, purple dye was worth more than its weight in pure gold. He was at the absolute peak of society. He had prestige, power, and ultimate comfort. But on a calm sea voyage across the Mediterranean, an unexpected storm tore his ship apart. In a matter of seconds, his entire life's work sank to the bottom of the dark water. He arrived in Athens with nothing but the clothes on his back, soaked in salt water, destitute, totally ruined. Now ask yourself honestly, what would happen to your mind if your bank account went to zero today? What if your job, your reputation, or your relationship collapsed without warning? Most of us live in constant, quiet terror of that exact scenario. We wake up every morning carrying an invisible weight, anxiously trying to protect our fragile little castles of comfort. We tell ourselves, once I get that promotion, then I'll be happy. Once I buy that home, once I fix my relationships, once my bank balance hits a certain number, then I will finally be at peace. Zeno realized something in the dirt of Athens that shattered that entire lie. He walked into a small bookstore, picked up the philosophical writings of Socrates, and realized a truth that hit him like a lightning bolt: true happiness can never be built on things that can be stolen from you in 10 minutes. Let that sink in. If your peace of mind depends on your income, your health, your reputation, or the way other people treat you, then you aren't actually happy. You are just holding a hostage negotiation with fate. You are handing the remote control of your emotions to a chaotic, unpredictable world, and praying it doesn't press the wrong button. Zeno didn't just survive his shipwreck, he celebrated it. Years later, looking back on his life, he wrote, "My most profitable voyage was the one in which I was shipwrecked." Because losing everything forced him to find the only thing that could never be lost: an unbreakable inner mind. Sigh. To understand why so few people ever reach this level of peace, you have to understand the tragic story of King Pyrrhus. Pyrrhus was one of the absolute greatest military commanders of his era. He was obsessed with conquest. He was constantly preparing his armies for battle, endlessly restless, driven by a burning desire to achieve more, conquer more, and expand his kingdom. One evening, his trusted advisor, a wise man named Seneca, sat down with the king before a massive military campaign against the Romans. Seneca leaned in and asked, "Your Majesty, if we defeat the Romans, what shall we do next?" Pyrrhus smiled proudly and said, "Then we will take Italy." Seneca nodded slowly. And once Italy is ours, my king, what then? Pyrrhus beat his chest. Then we conquer Sicily. It is rich and vulnerable. And after Sicily? Seneca asked softly. Then we cross over to Africa and strike Carthage. No one will be able to resist us. Seneca smiled gently, looking deep into the eyes of the restless king. And when all of that is done, when the whole world is in your hands, what will we do then? Pyrrhus chuckled, relaxed into his chair, and said, "Ah, my friend. Then we shall sit down, rest, enjoy fine wine, and talk peacefully together every single day." Seneca looked at him, his voice barely above a whisper. "Your Majesty, what prevents us from sitting down right now, drinking fine wine, and enjoying peace this very moment? Why must we sacrifice thousands of lives, shed oceans of blood, and endure endless terror, just to arrive at a place we are already standing in? Doesn't that sound horrifyingly familiar? How many years of your life have you spent running toward a destination that keeps moving further away? You tell yourself, just one more step. Just one more win. Just one more milestone. But the moment you achieve it, the high fades in 24 hours. The anxiety creeps back in. The void reopens. You are running on an endless treadmill, constantly exhausted, constantly waiting for your real life to finally begin. The Stoics identified this exact psychological disease over 2,000 years ago. They realized that human beings are plagued by a deadly illusion, the belief that external achievements can heal an internal void. And until you cure that illusion, you will remain a prisoner, no matter how much money or success you accumulate. Let's talk about a man who truly understood what it meant to be a prisoner, and how he discovered the ultimate key to human freedom. His name was Epictetus. Unlike Marcus Aurelius, who ruled the known world as the Emperor of Rome, Epictetus was born into the absolute bottom of human suffering. He was born a slave in Hierapolis, owned by a brutal, cruel master named Epictetus. Epictetus was physically tortured. His master once took his leg and began twisting it violently in an iron instrument, just to demonstrate his complete control over him. Epictetus didn't scream. He didn't beg. He simply looked his master in the eye with absolute composure and said, calmly, "If you keep twisting, you will break my leg." The master ignored him and twisted harder, snapping the bone. Epictetus didn't shed a single tear. He looked down at his shattered leg, then looked back up at his master, and said without a trace of anger, "Did I not tell you that you would break it?" For the rest of his life, Epictetus walked with a severe limp. But he walked as the single most dangerous, powerful, and free man in Rome. Why? Because he had unlocked a secret that made him completely untouchable to external harm. Epictetus realized a truth so radical it can instantly liberate your mind right now: people are not disturbed by things, but by the views which they take for things. Read that again. Internalize it. It is never the traffic that ruins your day, it is your belief that the traffic shouldn't exist. It is never the insult that breaks your heart, it is your demand that everyone must validate you. It is never the failure that destroys your confidence, it is your belief that failure makes you worthless. Epictetus showed us that there are two realms in human life. Realm 1, things that are in your absolute control, your thoughts, your intentions, your choices, your reactions, and your character. Realm 2, things that are outside your control, other people's opinions, the weather, the economy, sickness, aging, unexpected accidents, and even death itself. The Stoics discovered that almost all human misery comes from a simple, tragic mistake: spending your emotional energy trying to control Realm 2, while completely neglecting Realm 1. When you try to force the external world to obey your wishes, you guarantee your own torment. You become fragile, bitter, and perpetually anxious. But the moment you pull your energy back into your own mind, the moment you decide that your inner clarity is your sole responsibility, you become an unshakable force. You realize that no person on this earth can ruin your day without your explicit permission. Consider the life of Marcus Aurelius. To the outside world, he had everything. He commanded armies, possessed unfathomable wealth, and held absolute power over millions of souls as the Emperor of Rome. Yet, his daily reality was a relentless storm of tragedy. He lost 8 of his children. He suffered from chronic, agonizing physical illness. His closest friend and top general betrayed him in an attempt to usurp his throne. And to make matters worse, a brutal pandemic, the Antonine Plague, swept through his empire, killing millions, destroying the economy, and bringing Rome to its knees. Imagine the immense weight sitting on his chest every single morning. He could have easily fallen into despair, turned to wild debauchery to numb the pain, or ruled as a cruel, bitter tyrant. Instead, every night, inside a dusty military tent on the freezing northern front, lit by a single flickering oil lamp, Marcus Aurelius opened a private journal. He didn't write for fame. He didn't write for an audience. He wrote to talk his own soul back into peace. In those pages, Marcus wrote these chilling, beautiful words: "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." When the world around him was collapsing into fever, war, and treason, Marcus did not look outward for a miracle. He looked inward. He cultivated a quiet, inner sanctuary, what the Stoics called the inner citadel. The inner citadel is a mental fortress that you build inside yourself. When the storms of life hit, when you face financial loss, heartbreak, betrayal, or total uncertainty, most people run out into the storm and fight the wind. The Stoic steps into the citadel, shuts the heavy oak door, and watches the storm pass through the window with absolute tranquility. Whisper. How do you actually build this inner citadel? How do you move from understanding this philosophy in your head to feeling it deep inside your chest when life punches you in the face? Because let's be honest, reading quotes on a screen is easy. Smiling when everything goes right is easy. But what happens when the shipwreck happens to you? What happens when you are standing in the middle of your own crisis, feeling the heavy lump in your throat and the panic rising in your chest? Execution is where almost everyone fails. But the Stoics left behind 3 secret psychological protocols, 3 dynamic mental exercises, specifically designed to rewire your brain's response to pain, desire, and loss. The first protocol allows you to instantly destroy anxiety in under 60 seconds by turning your worst fears into fuel. The second protocol unlocks a state of mind called amor fati, a radical psychological flip that makes it physically impossible for you to ever feel like a victim again. And the third protocol, the most controversial and secret exercise of all, was used by ancient sages to unlock a profound, overwhelming sense of gratitude and joy that lasts for the rest of your life. Most people live their entire lives without ever discovering these 3 protocols. They stay trapped on the treadmill, chasing shadows, waiting for a peace that never arrives. Let's step directly into the first protocol. The ancient Romans called it premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. Most modern self-help advice tells you to think positive, visualize success, and manifest good vibes. But the Stoics knew that blind optimism is a fragile, dangerous trap. When you spend all your time pretending bad things will never happen, you leave yourself completely exposed. The moment reality strikes, a sudden job loss, a betrayal, a medical diagnosis, your entire world shatters because you never trained your mind to handle it. Consider the life of Seneca. Seneca was one of the wealthiest men in the entire Roman Empire. He had vast estates, immense influence, and unimaginable riches. But he served as an advisor to Nero, a tyrant who was growing increasingly paranoid, cruel, and unstable. Seneca knew that at any second, Nero could order his execution or strip him of all his wealth. So how did Seneca remain calm, productive, and filled with deep joy every single day? Every single month, Seneca did something that left his friends completely bewildered. He would leave his luxurious palace, put on the cheapest, coarsest clothes he could find, and sleep on a hard floor. For 3 days, he ate nothing but stale bread and drank plain water from a ditch. And while sitting in the dirt, wearing rags, Seneca would look at his reflection and ask himself one simple question: is this the condition that I feared? Think about how profound that is. By facing his worst fear voluntarily, Seneca realized something incredible: poverty couldn't destroy his soul. Hunger couldn't steal his mind. The cold couldn't erase his character. The fear lost all its power over him because he stopped running from it. He stepped directly into the dark room, turned on the light, and realized there were no monsters there, only shadows. When you mentally rehearse the worst-case scenario, you perform a psychological miracle. You strip anxiety of its secrecy. You look your absolute worst-case scenario in the eye and realize, even if this happens, I will adapt. I will survive. I will build again. And once you know you can handle the worst, fear dies. What's left in its place is an unshakable, profound sense of peace. Now, let's move to the second protocol, a concept so radically empowering it can turn your greatest tragedies into your greatest victories. The Stoics called it amor fati, the love of fate. Notice the word choice. They didn't say tolerate fate. They didn't say endure fate. They said love it. To truly understand what this looks like in the real world, fast forward to a cold December night in 1914. Whisper. In West Orange, New Jersey, a massive explosion rocked the research laboratory of Thomas Edison. Within minutes, chemical fires raged out of control, engulfing 10 giant buildings. Edison's life's work, worth millions of dollars, containing priceless prototypes, notes, and records that could never be replaced, was turning to ash right before his eyes. At 67 years old, most people would have suffered a heart attack. They would have wept in agony watching their entire life crumble into smoke. Edison didn't do that. He calmly walked over to his son, Charles, who was standing near the roaring flames in complete shock. Edison placed a hand on his son's shoulder, smiled, and said, "Go get your mother and all her friends. They will never see a fire like this again." Charles stared at his father as if he had lost his mind. "Dad, everything you built is burning to the ground." Edison looked at the inferno, took a deep breath of the smoke-filled air, and replied, "There is great value in disaster. All our mistakes are burned up. Thank God we can start anew." The very next morning, before the coals had even stopped smoking, Edison gathered his team and told them to start rebuilding. Within a year, despite losing millions, his company produced more revenue than it ever had in history. Edison didn't just tolerate the fire, he embraced it. He treated the disaster not as a tragedy, but as a giant reset button provided by fate. This is the essence of amor fati. Most people treat life like a victim. When something goes wrong, they scream, "Why is this happening to me?" The Stoic flips the script and asks, "How is this happening for me?" Let that sink in. When someone betrays you, they are teaching you discernment. When a door slams in your face, it is forcing you to build a better path. When you experience heartbreak, it is expanding your capacity for emotional strength. Every obstacle, every insult, every failure is raw material. It is fuel tossed into the fire of your mind. A weak fire is extinguished by the wind, but a raging blaze consumes the wind and grows 10 times bigger. Be the blaze. That brings us to the third and final protocol, the secret key to unlocking a state of pure, permanent joy that modern society has completely forgotten. It centers around an ancient phrase, memento mori, remember that you must die. To a modern ear, that sounds dark, depressing, and morbid. We spend billions of dollars trying to pretend that death doesn't exist. We hide our aging skin, we distract ourselves with bright screens, and we live as if we are going to walk this earth for 10,000 years. But that illusion is precisely why so many people are miserable. When you assume you have endless time, everything becomes cheap. You scroll through social media for hours, wasting precious afternoon light. You take your loved ones for granted, arguing over trivial nonsense. You stay stuck in jobs you hate and lives you despise, telling yourself you'll change tomorrow. Whisper. Listen closely. Imagine walking into a room today and seeing someone you love deeply, your mother, your partner, your child, your best friend. Now imagine a voice whispering in your ear, this is the very last time you will ever see them. Tomorrow, they will be gone forever. How would you look at them in that moment? Would you check your phone while they were talking? Would you roll your eyes at their stories? Would you argue with them over who forgot to take out the trash? Of course not. You would hang on every single word. You would stare at the detail of their face. You would cherish every second, feeling a wave of intense, overwhelming gratitude just to be sitting in the same room with them. Nothing about them changed. The only thing that changed was your realization that time is borrowed. This is the secret power of memento mori. The Stoic doesn't think about death to become sad. The Stoic thinks about death to wake up. When you realize that this exact day, this exact breath, this cup of coffee, this sunset, this conversation, might be your last, everything suddenly turns into pure gold. You stop waiting for some magical future to start enjoying your life. You look around at the ordinary moment sitting right in front of you, and you realize it is an absolute miracle. You see, true happiness was never about getting more money, more fame, or more control over a chaotic world. It was always about waking up to the present moment. It was about recognizing that you already possess the ultimate fortress inside your own head. When you master your reactions, when you embrace your fate with a smile, and when you treat every single day as a precious, temporary gift, you become completely invincible. No shipwreck can destroy you. No fire can burn your soul. No tyrant can steal your peace. You become the master of your own mind, walking through a chaotic world with absolute grace, unshakable calm, and boundless joy. If you felt a spark of truth in your chest today, if you are ready to stop letting the world push you around and finally take control of your own life, do not let this moment fade away. Subscribe right now to the Stoic Path for our upcoming video titled Respect Yourself Again. Your journey to an unbreakable mind has only just begun. Step into your power, and reclaim your peace today.